Hi guys, welcome to the Killing Chonk vlog. On Monday we went pumpkin picking with our friend Becky and her daughter Lexi. It was a good laugh. Do strongly recommend anyone who hasn't been should go. We even found one that looks like corn. So Amelia, if you're watching, skip ahead to about 1 minute 20. There's a special bit for you just there. Lexi also finds one that looks like a minion at one point. I spend a lot of time trudging around with a wheelbarrow looking like a bit of an idiot. These ones are particularly good. They look like little mushrooms. I think the guy at the front said they were called a Turk's turban. Yeah, they're very weird. They grow very odd, and I say they look a bit like a mushroom. You see a few of them dotted around, and then there's these grey ones, all normal sort of looking ones. Some of them have got sort of warts and things on them. So yeah, it's good variety. Corn! Big lump with knobs. It's even got the juice.
Because strong women breed strong women. What a champ. Skill.
It's our haul so far. Big haul. You filming me, filming you. It's rude.
Little dude. We're going to have a look over there in a minute. We've already got probably 60 quid's worth of pumpkins in this basket. A moment for our fallen pumpkin.
Are we going in or are we going round?
This one, it's quite cool actually. I like all the really funky shaped ones.
A little UFO.
Yeah.
You just said that, didn't you? Like, got one of them 12 back on.
Having fun?
Yeah. Definitely too many of these.
You can never have too many pumpkins.
Yeah, you definitely can't.
We eat pumpkin soup for a year.
For a year.
Yeah.
Nah, mate.
Don't let me buy any more pumpkins. It's just such a vibe.
healthy post-appointment foods.
Everybody needs to. Look, it's 11 o'clock on the dot.
11 on the dot. Ready for our breakfast sandwiches.
Sly McMuffin.
There's nothing sly about it.
It's sly right in the changeover time.
And the reason that we actually came in this direction we're not out now even doing because of the weather. Stay to that. Rubbish weather.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, so we are doing this week from the future baby room, so it's still covered in boxes. This is still the only piece I've managed to do after my initial ambition of thinking I'd get it all done in a day. What a fool. Still the wardrobe there behind me. So 8 weeks ago I've got a limited time frame on getting this done, but I will get it done. So I just haven't had the energy to do it this week. I've been doing other things. I had a couple of days just chilling. But the big news is that we've now met with my oncologist, so we've got a bit of a plan. So I'm going to go through that. For anyone who is keeping up with this stuff both on YouTube and podcast, this is going to serve both. So if you watch it or listening, you only need to watch or listen this week. I'm just going to rip the audio from this and turn that into the podcast. So I'm going to try. I've written a little set of notes here, so I'm going to try and go through it as clearly and as in order as possible. So today's Friday, 21st. We met with the oncologist yesterday at Castle Hill Hospital at the Queen Centre. She's really, really nice. So I don't know whether I've just got lucky or whether they're all just nice in this particular field. I guess if you work with people with brain tumours, you've got to be kind of nice, but they're all lovely. Much better experience. I've had a much better experience with my doctors than Emma is currently having with the maternity side of things. They've been shocking. The midwives have been great, but she had a meeting with a consultant who was just straight up rude to her. If he worked in any other field, you'd have asked to speak to his line manager and had him reprimanded. But some of these consultants are just above all that in their mind. Absolute bellend. So we've had it changed, and we've got some fairly pressing concerns now with all that, which I'll get onto in a bit. But yeah, we had a good meeting yesterday with the midwives, and they seem to have noted it down and actually taken notice of the fact that the fact I've got a brain tumour is going to change things. So yeah, so I'll get onto that. So the plan for the treatment now that so I'll give you another little close up of the scar. So it's healing quite nicely, they've said. At one point last week I had this weird thing where I had fluid building up under here, and I could sort of squidge it and move it around, and my head was like jelly. It was really odd. That passed though, sort of stuck around for a couple of days, and then overnight one night I woke up and it was just gone. It was really odd. But yeah, now that that's gone, there shouldn't be any more delays to the plan for the treatment. So the plan is radiotherapy first, then chemo. There's a couple of different types of chemo they might do, but she's already fairly confident of what type I'm going to need based on the markers that she's seen already from the testing. And she was saying that the type of tumour that I've got, with the grade that it is and the markers that I've got so far, is kind of good news in some regard, because there's very well documented evidence of a certain treatment path working quite well. There's a bit of debate as to which way round you do it. So in Europe it's radiotherapy then chemotherapy. In America they would do chemo first then radio, and there's no right or wrong way. The studies show that there's not really much difference in the outcomes. I suppose the only difference the difference from me would be that chemo, you know, it makes you immunosuppressed, so you could get ill and have other problems, you know, especially with COVID and that kicking around still. You know, if I'm on chemo, I'm much more susceptible to coming down with something else, which if I did would delay then the radiotherapy. But if I do radio first, that's not immunosuppressant. There's a few side effects, which again I'll come on to in a bit, but nothing. It's not like I'm going to get really ill. Just a few sort of things to be aware of, really. So yesterday was also the first time we had a proper conversation with someone about sort of prognosis and, you know, what the longer term plan with all of this is. So what they're doing, the surgery and all of the oncological measures, none of it is going to cure the tumour. It's going to be there forever, and eventually it'll get me. But what they're doing, the plan is, you know, delay it as long as possible. And there's some good studies that show that, you know, a decent number of people can make it 20 plus years from this point. So, you know, hopefully I do a bit better than that, and we'll see how we get on. But eventually it will get me, which is it's an interesting perspective to have now, you know, knowing that, you know, things that you always thought, oh, we'll get around to that one day, you know, now I've got a deadline to work to, you know, the one day is now, you know, just got to do things. So yeah, I haven't really thought about that yesterday. Somebody asked me yesterday, actually, have you got a bucket list? I was like, no, I haven't got that far yet. I'm sure I will, but I haven't really thought about that yet. So in terms of what the treatment for the radio looks like, so we don't know what the chemotherapy is going to be yet. She hasn't fully decided. She's fairly confident she knows what she wants to do. There's several different types of chemo though, some of which are basically what you see on TV, you know, where you and films and stuff, when people have got cancer and they sit in the big chair with the drip, and that's all you have. You go in every day, and then there's another kind where you do that at the beginning, and then most of it is taken at home, tablets or injections, I guess. I'm not really sure. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all just poison, I suppose, isn't it? So as long as you stick to the regime they've given you, it's, you know, relatively safe. It's quite well studied and quite well funded. We did notice, actually, going into the Queen's Centre at Castle Hill, it's very obvious where a lot of the money goes at the minute. You know, cancer is obviously a big, you know, there's lots of charities and there's lots of funding going into cancer at the moment. So it was a big, you know, nice building with lots of nice facilities, much nicer than any of the other parts of the hospital that we've been in so far. And, you know, even to the point where in the waiting room, the chairs were the nicest chairs we've sat on in any part of the hospital. Even the chair that was next to my bed on the ward wasn't as nice. But, you know, nice comfy chairs and little things, so it makes a big difference. And, you know, other little things like the car parking for that centre is completely free. You just validate the same way that you do, you know, some sort of coffee shops. You have to put your reg in at the desk. So, you know, the little things like that do help. Takes a little bit of worry away, you know. So in terms of the actual treatment then, so the radiotherapy, it can't start for another 4 or 5 weeks yet, so there is a wait. Then there's some procedures they need to do first, which I'll come to in a minute. But the actual treatment itself is high energy X-rays, and so essentially I'm on a bench, and then there's this machine will rotate round me, blasting the X-rays in up, you know, whatever the angles and power and stuff that the oncologist has prescribed, and then it'll be a case of hoping that shrinks it, I guess, or kills some of it. So the MRI that I showed a couple of weeks ago, also see if I can pull up a still of it now. So we weren't sure whether all of the area that's kind of light grey is tumour or not, and they can't be sure from the imaging they've got at the moment either. What she did say though is that even if it is swelling, because of the nature of my tumour is infiltrative, so there's no defined edge, so it's not like a ball of tumour that's pushing on the brain that they can just remove. So I talked about this already, how they haven't removed all of it. The reason for that is because the tumour is essentially part of my brain. It's, kind of weaved within the bits of my brain that are actually supposed to be there. And so, there's bits of it that are obviously tumour, and she can target those and, zap them fairly clearly and obviously, but there is a surrounding area where she's going to have to also zap those, because there's a likelihood that there's microscopic tumour cells in and amongst all of that area. That's the difference, I think, between what initially we thought it was grade 2 and now it's not. It's grade 3. It's more aggressive. So we've got to get on with this. It's one of the reasons why we can't really wait. So the regime is I've got to go in for 6.5 weeks every weekday. So weekends off. And it's probably going to start early December or late November, so sort of 4 or 5 weeks from now. They haven't given us an exact date yet. There's a few things that have to happen between now and then. So first thing that has to happen is I have to go for another CT scan to get an update on what it looks like. I guess for radiotherapy, they're also going to need to know where the plates are that are holding my skull down. I can't feel them. I don't know where they are. So, but I guess they would need to know that so that they don't hit that, because that will affect the dosage. The metal will shield to a degree some of the X-rays. Not a lot, not shield. Dissipate. So the amount of energy that gets through to the brain, the bit of brain that they're trying to kill, it wouldn't be as strong as they think it would be if they go through one of the plates. So I guess they need to know where that is. So a CT scan is X-ray as well, but it's lower dose X-ray. A normal sort of same sort of thing that you get. If you break your leg or break your arm, except it's essentially a tube that your head goes in, and the X-ray thing, you can hear it whizzing round while you're in there. Kind of similar to an MRI, but it's X-rays rather than magnets. I also need an updated MRI, so we're waiting for appointments for both of those things. So the MRI, I think, is so that she can plan her treatment in terms of target locations and dosages for those target locations and stuff like that. The other thing that needs to happen between now and the start of the treatment is I've got to have a mask made. So I'll try and put a picture of this up as well, for those who are watching. So it's a kind of plastic mesh that they heat up and it becomes sort of floppy. I lie down and stay still. They drape it over my face. It's a kind of thermoplastic that basically as it cools down it goes hard, so they just leave it over my face. Won't be too hot that it will hurt or anything, I don't think. But then as it cools down, it will mould completely to the shape of my head, including my nose and my eye sockets and everything. It will sit completely flush on my face. And then I think they said they cut out holes around the nose and the mouth so that there's no problems there. The idea of it being that while I'm going through the treatment, my head's got to be absolutely still. Kind of similar to the way it was in the surgery, where I was caged, attached to a thing, which meant that I couldn't move while I was awake. And I've got to be dead still for this as well. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Kind of weirdly hope I can keep it afterwards as well, because it'd be an interesting ornament to put on the wall, and kind of remember this. Part of all this is, as crap as it all is, it's something that not everybody gets to experience. So I can do my best to try and share that and be an advocate for it and all that sort of thing. So CT MRI, we did when it is. So once it's all finished, I think they have to give a bit of breathing room and then probably do some more scans to check what's worked, what hasn't worked, and so on. And then the plan after that would be to go on to chemo. They haven't explained yet what kind of chemo. There's several different types. I kind of talked about this before. There is a plan as to what kind of chemo it is that I'm going to be having. But as I said, there's nothing sort of in writing or agreed to yet. So for the radiotherapy, there's a plan there, and I've signed forms to say, yeah, go ahead, do what you need to do. But they haven't done the same with chemo yet, or been through any of the chemo side effects, which I believe are worse than radio. So I was going to do side effects a little bit later, but I'll do that now while I'm here. So the main side effects will be tiredness, sort of confusion and short-term memory loss, she said. Both of those which may not actually happen immediately. They might be delayed, they might happen later, which is weird. She was saying that it's quite common for people who've had radiotherapy, a year or 2 years or even longer down the line, to suddenly overnight wake up one morning and you have side effects of your treatment happen all of a sudden then, which is all a bit weird. It kind of makes sense though, because they are going to kill off quite a significant portion of my brain. The tumour is big, and as I was saying before, it's sort of infiltrative, so it's weaved in amongst parts of my brain that actually do a job, and they're going to just have to kill all of that off, I think. So I'll end up with like half a brain. So most of my right side is, I don't know whether it'll be gone or it'll be scarred or damaged or how it'll be left, but we'll find out when that happens. So yeah, most of the side effects of radio, got sidetracked again. Most of the side effects of radio are things like hair loss, particularly over the bit they're targeting. So I might lose just patches of hair here. I think I'm just going to shave it all off again, to be honest. Shaved it off before the surgery. I have asked the question whether they need to track the hair loss. If they do, then I won't shave it off. I'll leave it and let them track what they need to track. But if they don't need to, then I think I'm just going to have it off and then, go bald mode for a while, get the scar out and my unfortunate mole. Just wear a hat. Anyone who knows me knows that it's coming up to winter now, and I basically wear a hat at all times anyway, so there's no change there. He did also say that the patch of my head where the x-rays are going in, I could end up with some skin redness and potentially even the skin flaking off, but she said that's kind of not very common. That's much less often happens. There are also some really rare side effects such as deafness, blindness. They can, in theory, the treatment could cause another tumour to grow in another part of the brain, but that's also really rare. So given the outcome of not having the treatment versus having the treatment, I think for me it makes sense to just let them do what they need to do. It's going to get me one day, so I might as well try, or let them try, and prolong things for as long as possible. So what else have we got on the list here? So on the side effects things, the other thing about doing radio first rather than chemo is that radio is not immunosuppressant, whereas chemo is. So given the timing of everything, I can, be in the maternity hospital, go to the birth of the child, have sort of friends and family visiting and stuff over Christmas, and not have to worry about anyone who might be, carrying COVID or a cold or anything that in theory, while I'm immunosuppressed could be what kills me. So I haven't got to worry about that. Once the chemo starts, I have got to worry about that. But that'll be into the new year then. I'm sure they'll go through all that about what I need to do. Probably need to go out far less often, stay at home as much as possible. See how we get on there. So I guess it wasn't going to be a normal Christmas anyway, because we'll have a brand new baby, hopefully, if he comes on time. So on baby, so after we'd had my appointment, later on in the afternoon we then had a midwife appointment for Emma, and for the first time they made an actual note of everything that's going on with me. We'd told them a couple of times, but nobody had written it down. She'd also had a really terrible appointment with a consultant about inducing her, because it's an IVF pregnancy. It's just standard practice to induce, which doesn't make sense to me. They just, without measuring anything, just say, yeah, well, we're just going to induce you. That's some of the shittest science I've ever heard. As it happens, she does actually have a few complications, which may mean that makes sense. But the way it was all dealt with was absolutely appalling. Some of the worst, I sort of mentioned this earlier, some of the worst dealings, Emma being a doctor as well, she knows the duty of care and the level of compassion that you're supposed to have, and this guy was an absolute moron. If he worked in any other capacity and I'd have been there, it'd have been a right, I want to talk to your manager situation. And, following up with, right, I expect to know that there's been an official reprimand of some sort. Some of these consultants just think they're above it all. An absolute dick. We've got a different appointment now with somebody else, and the midwives that we saw, they managed to pull that meeting forward to this Wednesday coming, so that we can actually have a conversation with somebody in good time to sort of acknowledge what's going on with me and the fact that I can't drive Emma there. And we're not sure what's going on now in terms of, is it a better idea to maybe have an elective C-section? We have got my mum and dad around to help. So, obviously if Emma has a section, she then can't drive or do anything really for the next few weeks. So, we need a lot of help. I'd have to have somebody around to, cook food for us and everything. We can't really do anything. We're already now struggling at this point to get in decent food every night, both for me and for, Emma with the baby. There's been a lot of Chinese takeaways and pizzas and various other things, quick food. So I think my plan, when it comes down to it, I think I'm going to get back on sort of prep kitchen or something like that. And then at least it'll be, food with some degree of nutrition that I haven't got to do anything particularly hard with. The idea of cooking a big, complicated recipe right now is not something that appeals to me. I've got, I used to really love cooking, and now I can't bear the idea of following instructions. When I built this thing, we saw the video the other day. I hope those who did watch. So I got about halfway through and then thought I'd made a mistake, which actually I hadn't. What the mistake was me reading the instructions wrong. So, even if I'm following like, a HelloFresh or a Gusto recipe or something, I might cock it up. And there's things that I've known how to cook for years that I just can't remember how to do. I've thought about it and thought, oh, that's really dead straightforward. I had beans on toast for lunch the other day, and it took me a few minutes to work out how to cook the beans. That was fairly tragic, but it's the state we're in at the moment, I guess. So yeah, hopefully when we have this appointment with the consultant, okay, I guess is it an obstetrician or a gynecologist? I can't remember. I think it's obstetrician. Yeah, hopefully they'll acknowledge that the state I'm in makes a difference, and that we need to manage the birth in a more sensible way than let's just wait and see what happens. You know, I know it's not something you can really prepare for. These things, they kind of just happen when they happen, which is sort of what we were ready for. But given that we now know that my treatment is definitely going to overlap, there's a genuine risk that I might miss it. You know, they could induce one day. Getting to and from the two hospitals isn't necessarily an issue. You know, the Queen's Centre have actually got transport services, so even if I didn't have a lift available, which I think I will do, I should be able to get transport between the two hospitals, provided by them. So yeah, the sort of the major thing to consider really at this point is, you know, am I going to be able to be there or not? Because, you know, if I've been, you know, if labour has started, and then I've got to get off and go for my treatment, which lasts about an hour, and then it's, you know, it's about half an hour between the two hospitals. I'll be gone for 2 hours. You know, there's a genuine likelihood there that, you know, I could be missing. I could be gone while the baby comes. Which, given that, you know, all the shit we went through to get here with the IVF, would just be awful. It's not something that either of us want, obviously, and so we're now starting to consider, you know, what we're going to do, who's going to be there, if I can't be there. You know, if we kind of know in advance, right, I'm going to miss this. You know, Emma needs somebody with her to support her. And we're not really, you know, we're not really sure who that's going to be. We sort of haven't really figured that out, to be honest. So yeah, it's all a bit crap, but it's the state we're in. You know, cards you get dealt and all that sort of stuff. Last thing I've got on my little list of things to talk about here is, you know, earlier this week I had this weird thing where just around my surgical site, so if you're watching, you can sort of stop pointing. So it was kind of around where the scar is, but there was a bit of fluid collecting, and I could push my head and it felt like jelly. You know, I could actually jiggle it. It was really odd, and then lasted a couple of days, and then I woke up one morning and it was just gone. Which is good, because it would have delayed the treatment, because they can't really do it. You can't really do anything while there's potentially a problem. The other thing that's been happening is, since I saw the surgeon a couple of weeks ago, I've had a few focal seizures, they've called them. I'm not sure they are, I haven't read what they are, but that's what they're being described as. So I have a little moment, it kind of feels like I'm going to have a seizure and then I don't actually have one. So it's the same feeling. So when I had those first two seizures, I get this weird numbness here and like down my nostril, and it feels like I'm dribbling and my nose is dripping. And then my sort of this part, my hand, you know, sort of crab's claw bit, if you like, sort of thumb and forefinger for those who are just listening, and the bit that connects the two, that all goes numb. The rest of my arm is fine, and it lasts for anywhere between sort of 10 seconds and about a minute maybe. Doesn't change. In fact, I had one this morning. So just finished eating my cereal, and it just came on, and it sort of lingers for, I don't know, 20-30 seconds and then just goes. It's really odd. So the last couple of conversations, including with the oncologist yesterday, were that if any more of these happen, likelihood is they'll need to up my dose of Keppra, which is my anti-seizure medication. She was also talking about it's possible that when I go for my radiotherapy, that could cause some seizures, so they may put the dose of Keppra up anyway around then. But I think, so I've let them know this morning, sent them an email, so I think it's likely that I'll get a phone call later today, them saying, right, yeah, you need to go up, put the dose up a little bit. I mean, the tablets are already massive, don't know how much bigger they can get, or whether they'll now start to come as 2 smaller tablets, which I'd prefer. Make way more sense as far as I'm concerned. So that was everything that I had on my list. If anyone's got any questions about anything, you can leave them in the comments, or those who know me, you send me a message and I'll try and go through it as much as I can. Anyone who doesn't know me, you can follow all this along on Instagram at KillingChonk, and you can send me a message there as well if you want to. Quite happy to answer any questions from anyone, really. You know, if anyone is going through anything similar, this the idea of making these videos is, you know, when I first found out about this, I looked for something similar and couldn't find one. I've actually found some since on Instagram, but I couldn't find anything sort of long form on YouTube, which is my main source of information. So I think that'll be that for this week.